If it's above 70%, you're pretty good.
Got it.
If it's below that, not good. Because you want people to stay to the end. That means your content is banging. You don't have to have a 45-minute episode. Susie Moore, she has like 8 to 10-minute episodes, and they're great.
Yeah.
So going back to the question is, find the type of content that you're comfortable recording weekly or even bi-weekly.
So how do you turn your business into an actual brand? Well, my name is Bijal Patel, and I've had 13 years of corporate experience working at big Fortune 500 companies, and I'm taking all of that juicy firsthand experience and have brought it into my company Launch. Within this podcast, you're going to learn about branding, vision, identity, mindset, and how to scale your business to the next level. So let's go ahead and own your brand. Hey guys, I'm so excited. Bijal Patel here with Own Your Brand, and I have my friend Renée Warren, and she's an incredible mother, entrepreneur, wife, and all of the things. Renée, take a minute to introduce yourself. What do we need to know about you?
Thanks for having me. I call you the bajillionaire.
Bajillionaire.
Because you got to think like a bajillionaire.
I'm keeping that forever, by the way. I'm letting that speak life into me.
I'm surprised nobody's ever called you that before.
It's because you're a brilliant, award-winning PR strategist.
That's
actually the reason.
That's totally it.
Literally.
Anyways, so my name's Renée Warren. I'm the founder of a company called We Wild Women. I help female entrepreneurs, creatives, coaches, consultants get the media attention they deserve. Yeah.
And you're also an angel investor.
I am an angel investor, an author, a podcast host,
a top 1% podcast host, Into the Wild.
Yeah. And a wife and mother.
It's amazing. So excited to have you. So let's dive in. So one of the things that attracted me to you, Renée, immediately off the bat was your energy. I feel like you carry this completely magnetic aura. And it's so interesting because I don't usually experience that with people because I'm usually the person.
You are that person.
But when I met you, and I don't know if you heard this on my previous podcast, we were at the event. It was, Dan, your husband, Dan Martell, and Taylor watched through an event. And Taylor was talking to me, and you came and sat next to me, and I literally just shouldered him and just stared at you because you have this presence about you. And I want to kind of understand, where do you get this like magnetic aura?
I don't know. Maybe it's a gift from God. But also, I have this mentality that every room that I walk into has to be a better place because I'm there. And not because of me.
Yeah.
But we all need more of that energy. And it's just easy for me to bring that into spaces. The problem with it, too, is that I'm an empath. So I also absorb all that energy.
Yes.
And there are days when I'm just exhausted and I look at my Oura ring and I was like, good sleep, good energy. Why am I tired? It's because I'm also absorbing that energy.
Right.
I can understand. We're actually talking about this the other day. I was at dinner at Taylor Welch's house with his wife. We were chatting about energy and how I can sense it with people as well as animals. It's like I know something's a little bit off or on.
Yeah.
And I have a really good instinct on people. So even Dan, when there was a moment in time that I was helping him hire because he was hiring so many people. Yeah. And he goes, I need you to be like kind of the last line, like suss it out. Who are these people? Because I'm really intuitive that way. Yeah. And I think because of that, I just bring that energy because I want to feel that way around other people. So I have to represent that energy as well.
I love that. And I can relate to you like so hard on the ability to read energy. I get that sense. And so to feel the aura that you brought, it was immediately like I just like whiplashed and looked at you. And what I think is so cool about that is that you have the intentionality that you're walking into the room with that. But I think it's also more than that. I think you've just been doing the work. So, we recently got to hang out with you and Dan, me and my husband, Cethel. We got to spend time with Renée and Dan. Super cool human beings, and we were at the couples Cabo retreat that you guys threw.
Yes.
It was incredible, and when we were there, you were talking about all the different intentions you have with your goals. The yearly goals, the quarterly goals, and you were sharing this like amazing CrossFit championship that you decided to do. So I wanted you to tell a little bit of that story because it to me is incredible to see what your determination was like of when you entered and where it ended.
Yeah, so I've been doing CrossFit for 9 years.
Wow.
And this was December of 2020. 2023. No,
Yeah.
2022.
Okay.
And that year I had written a goal at the beginning of the year saying, here are some of the things I want to achieve. One of which was to win a CrossFit competition. Win.
Y'all, she's not just like, I'm gonna start CrossFit, which by the way is a normal thing. You have two boys, Max and Noah. They're Irish twins.
Yeah.
So they're less than 18 months apart.
11 months apart.
11 months apart, correction. And most humans would be like, I think I'm gonna try CrossFit maybe twice a week.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm gonna win a championship.
Yeah, so what happened was we did a Tony Robbins event in December, and there was a CrossFit competition happening in my town. And I signed up for it, and it was a partner competition. So I had Caitlin, she was amazing. So it was, I don't even remember what day it was, but it started, or it was on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. And I had signed, like the beginning of the year, I said, I'm going to win a CrossFit competition. And I was like, it's coming to the end of the year, this has to happen. So I'd signed up for this comp. We trained a little bit together. And then we went to a Tony Robbins event. I was like, I got to win this thing. So we come back on Friday afternoon. And the next morning, I'm waking up and I'm going to the gym to do the competition.
Wow.
So here's what else is really fascinating. When you put that intention out into the universe, you can manifest it.
Yes.
You have to do the work to manifest it. The coolest thing, our gym is called CrossFit Okanagan. And it is the gym for one of the top CrossFit athletes in all of Canada, who has come second and third at the CrossFit Games, Brent Fikowski. And I love that guy. I've never met him before in my life. He happened to walk into the gym when I was on the assault bike, which is one of the most grueling athletic things to do in CrossFit. And I'm just going, that was the end of like the second workout. I hop off and I look up and I see him there. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
And so I go up and I ask him, like, we're just chatting. I'm like, can I get a picture with you? And at the end, he nudges me. He's like, hey, good job on that bike. You crushed it. I'm like, so now I'm like, gotta level up. This guy's here and I have to win this competition.
Wow.
Well, didn't win. However, I came third.
Amazing.
So we got on the podium and I left it all out on the field, on the table, on the floor, whatever the expression is, on the assault bike. And my kids were there to see it, and Dan was there to see it. And it just got me thinking, wow, if I can do this, I can do anything.
That's amazing.
But also, when you see people out there winning at life, it's not because they just woke up one day and they're like, I'm just going to win this competition. There's so much that goes into it. The most important thing is discipline.
Yeah.
And you're learning this about 75 Hard.
Oh, gosh. Yes. I'm going to win.
And that's the thing. In life, in everything you do, in parenting, in business, in marriage, in friendships.
Right.
Like, there's so much discipline that's involved. And if you don't have that and you don't have the grit factor, then you will lose.
It's amazing. So, like, this is what I love because, like, when we came to Cabo and you're wearing, like, the red outfit.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
All right, y'all. This red outfit.
But it's funny because I do not like the color red.
Well, the color liked you.
Apparently.
I mean, I'm a branding queen. That color liked you. And Renee just had abs. For miles, and we got to take a picture together, and I kind of like snuck a
little, you copped
a little bit of a feel.
Yeah, your face is also at the same height of my stomach.
This is true. This is true, and I was so inspired. That was the moment. Actually, I decided that I wanted to have visible abs.
There you go.
That was the moment. I was like, Renee has abs. They are real, and wow, that's what it feels like.
If there's one thing we learned about this couples retreat is what Chris Smith said. Is there is possibility in everything.
Yes.
That totally locked it in for so much. And now I use the word possibility all the time.
All the time.
Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but there's a possibility that it can. Knowing there's a possibility means you can do it.
Which leads me to the next thing that was so inspirational that you've done, because in observing you, and I've only gotten to know you for a little period of time, but my attraction towards you is like really strong, which is so cool because when I get hyped about someone, I get really hyped about them. Not sure if you can notice. Not sure you notice.
You're a great cheerleader.
I mean it. And I'll kind of like ferociously go after it. And one of the things that I noticed in the history of learning about your story, that same kind of grit, determination, vision, and seeking of possibilities, when you started your podcast, Into the Wild, again, like a normal person starts a podcast and is like, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be cool. I can't wait. This is a dream. You were like, I'm going to have a top 1% podcast in the entrepreneurial space at that. As if there's not a bajillion people who start it all the time. And as of this recording, you are top 1.5%.
1%.
1% of the entrepreneur space.
Yeah, so the podcast started thanks to Amy Porterfield, who I was listening to her show, and she's like, podcasting's the new blogging. And I'm like, well, if Amy says it, then that must be true. And I kept talking about it and talking about it. And funny enough, we're actually coming up on the 4th year anniversary of the show.
Wow.
So finally, Dan turned to me, my husband. He's just like, okay, stop talking about it, pick a day, and make it happen.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I just arbitrarily threw this date out, April 27th.
Which is my birthday.
Shut up.
Yes. So when you say Into the Wild, I was like, born into the wild.
Yeah. So on that day, I did not know what was involved. I thought it was a lot easier than what happened. So the first 12 episodes, I did literally everything. I recorded it. I edited it. I did all the branding, everything for it. And it was so much work leading up to that date that I committed to. That I had to rent an Airbnb for 4 days, go, and I was working like 18-hour days to get this thing out the door.
Wow.
Just by myself, no kids, no responsibility. And I finally did. And then after the 12th episode, I hired a producer who's been with me ever since. And didn't know what I was doing, hardly look at the analytics, just figured, you know what, I'm going to record some really cool interviews with female entrepreneurs, and that's what it's going to be. Then I said, but wait, I want to be in the top 1%. What's it going to take? Well, better content, more episodes, and now we're doing 2 a week. Interviews,
that's amazing.
Solo episodes, hired a coach.
Yes.
And we're just fine-tuning all the things. Here's what happened. Last fall, we noticed that we had a duplicate show on Spotify. And we think it was there from the beginning. We just noticed it. They both had the same amount of ratings and reviews.
Wow.
And I said, so not to confuse the listener, let's go and delete one of them.
Yeah.
So what happens is my ratings tanked.
Yeah.
And we used a tool that tells us like where we kind of sit in the position of the world. And we went from the top 1.5% of the time down to the top 2.5 in the world. And I was so emotional about it. I was crying. I'd worked so hard. I was like, why? What happened?
Yeah.
And then the ratings really only refresh or update every month, so I had to wait. And I hosted my first ever Mountaintop Mastermind with our buddies Cal and Stephen Kinsey.
Shout out, guys. You guys are amazing.
And we were sitting at our place on the top of the mountain doing this mastermind, and Kinsey was like, hey, Renee, can you use your little tool and see where my podcast is? And then Callan wanted to know where hers was, so I'm like looking at all of them, and they're like, where's yours? And I said, I don't want to look. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just take a look. So I happened to put in Into the Wild, pressed click, and I looked, and it was 1%.
Oh my God.
Top. And I was like, oh my, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I made it.
Oh my gosh.
But here's what happens. If you're such a driven human and you achieve that goal, you reflect, you win, you celebrate, then you're like, what's next?
Right.
Immediately. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Top 0.5%. Yeah, I've got to keep going. But now it's like, you get this in the podcasting world, all of a sudden there's this social cred you get by doing that, the consistency, the number of episodes you have, and who you have as a guest on your show.
Yes.
So now this is leverage, and now I've had some of the people that I've admired forever on my show, like Amy Porterfield and Gabby Reese, and just some incredible humans. And here we are today.
That's amazing. First of all, like just another round of applause, because the discipline it takes, again, to be able to do that. The same with the CrossFit story. Like, I'm not just going to start something, I'm going to rank in place. And I love that drive that's within you. And I just listened to the Gabby Reese interview you did, and it was phenomenal, guys. Like, go check out. We'll put the link for Into the Wild. Like, listen, your voice, like, I literally could just consume your voice. I'm like, can I borrow that?
Isn't that
like,
hilarious? hate my voice.
Okay, I'm literally like, I was like, this is gonna be weird, but I'm gonna be like, your voice is like as silky as honey. I was like, no, let's not say that. It might get weird.
So I surveyed my audience, and there was one of the questions I asked in the survey because we just wanted to know how to do better.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I asked are, what are some of the things that would stop you from listening to a show? And I put the option of the host's voice as being one of the options, and that was actually a really dominating factor as to why people do or do not listen to a show. If they do not like the host's voice, and I get it. You're not going to listen to an artist whose voice you don't like. You're just never going to tune into their music.
Okay, so this is going to lead to the next question, because a lot of people who are listening to our show are excited about owning their brand, they're small business owners, and they're thinking about starting a podcast. So when I hear that frightens me, because I know I have a bit of a deeper voice for being a female. Apparently that creates gravitas. So what I've been told, that in the corporate world, they actually have women who have squeaky, like Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse voices, and they have to go through gravitas training, like if you're working with McKinsey and Consulting.
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody who's excited about starting a podcast, but like doesn't like the sound of their own voice?
Do it.
Just do it anyways.
You can't just go to the gym, walk through the door, and then be fit and then leave. With podcasting, if you go back to my earlier episodes, I did not sound the same. I did not know what I was talking about, but I just knew that if I put in the reps.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, every single episode that we go to publish, I listen to at least twice, either before or after it's been published. I have a team that knows if it's good. I'm listening to where I can improve.
That's amazing.
Twice.
Not once.
Yeah.
Twice.
And we all hate the sound of our own voice.
Girl.
And I just cringe listening to it.
I just want did you remember the silky honey thing I just said?
Yeah.
I said it on camera for you. Like, that's for real. I was like, wow.
I remember one time sometimes I'll pitch people on DMs to be a guest, and there's a friend of mine who became the CEO of Edelman in Canada, which is a very prestigious career move. And what I messaged her, because we were friends in college days, and I messaged her a voice note saying I would love to have her on the show. She replied, "Hello, radio voice. When did this happen?"
You're like, oh, hello.
Like, no, there's some days, but it fluctuates.
Yeah,
if I'm really tired and overwhelmed, it's not as good.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something to work on. And as part of being in PR, we do media training.
Yes.
Media training is beyond just the story you're telling.
So you can work on this like a voice actor would. Okay. So
100%.
there is hope.
There's hope for everybody.
For anybody and
Go
everybody.
back to Joe Rogan's first episodes. Go back to anybody's first episodes. Unless they've done it before, they're not that great.
So let's say that's amazing, by the way. It's great to hear that you're going to continue to improve, just like the gym analogy ties back to CrossFit. So let's say somebody wants to start this podcast. We just talked about this in my group coaching call, Brandfinity, the other day. And I was like, okay, once you're done with the foundation of your brand, you need to think about where else are you going to show up? Like, where are your other opportunities to expand brand? Naturally, one of them was podcasts. So if someone is a two-part question. So first part is someone thinking about starting a podcast. What are like the top 3 things they should consider? And then the second question is related to if they already have a podcast, but they kind of feel like they're just floating around in a lazy river and it's not doing what they thought it was going to do. What potential advice would you have for them?
Okay, so I think the first answer will answer all of them. So the most important thing is you need to double down on your niche. And we know this is the work that we all do. But the thing about podcasting now is because there are there's millions of podcasts out there. If you're not specific on who you're serving and why you're serving them, it's like a free-for-all.
Okay.
There's some people that can get away with it. Joe Rogan is very broad because of who he is.
Yeah.
But in your industry, get specific on who you're serving and why. This goes into the description of your show. It goes into like the little blurbs about your show. This goes into the just like every episode show notes. It goes into the titles of your episodes.
So just really niching it down.
100%.
So I had somebody ask me this the other day, the client. He said had a dream of his to start a podcast. Him and his wife are both chiropractors. They have a really successful practice. He's a junkie about health and wellness, but he also like really loves to travel and has, naturally has other interests. one of his fears was, if I start a podcast, but it's only about like chiropractic, type of, health and wellness, like super niched down, I'm worried, one, I won't have enough to talk about, or two, I'll get bored.
Two things
and
there.
I'll give up. So yeah, let's hear it.
Most people don't need to be taught, they need to be reminded.
Oof.
So your content can be repetitive.
Oh my gosh.
And the other thing is starting a podcast isn't for everybody. And sometimes the best use of someone's time and leverage is to go on other people's show.
Really?
You're just essentially, what you're doing is you're being invited to somebody else's audience who's already warmed up. The average podcast length is 37 minutes. Mm-hmm. There's no other marketing channel that allows you to be in front of somebody else's entire audience for 37 minutes talking about the thing that you are really good at. Think about it.
That's crazy.
Right? So
yeah.
Starting a podcast takes a lot of time, effort, money. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just not for you. And it's okay. Not everybody has to have a podcast. Most podcasts don't survive past the 8th episode.
Oh my gosh. I thought it was the 12th. It's the 8th.
It's the 8th episode. They give up.
Wow.
A lot of people give up after 1.
Really?
Yeah. They're like, oh, geez, this is actually really hard. And it is. There are days when I show up to interviews or even recording solo episodes.
Yeah.
It's a slog. I'm like, I don't want to be here. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
You figure stuff out.
Right.
So then you look at your analytics. There's a really important number. Everyone thinks it's the download number.
Uh-huh.
Sure, that's important.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to be running ads. However, one of the most important metrics is your completion rate. So how much of an episode are your listeners actually consuming? If it's above 70%, you're pretty good.
Got it.
If it's below that, not good. Because you want people to stay to the end. That means your content is banging. You don't have to have a 45-minute episode. Susie Moore, she has like 8 to 10-minute episodes, and they're great.
Yeah.
So going back to the question is,
Yeah.
find the type of content that you're comfortable recording weekly.
Yep.
Or even bi-weekly. The stakes are high. It's not monthly anymore. It's like at least once a week.
Wow.
And pick the format that suits you best. Is it interview? Is it solo? Are you co-hosting? Whatever it is.
Yep.
And then stick to that. Stick to it for long enough to know that you have enough data to realize, is this what we should be doing or not? Look at your analytics. Mm-hmm. What are the completion rates of each episode? Or consumption rate, I forget how they call it.
Yeah.
And then keep doing it. It's quality and quantity together. There's so much competition out there right now.
I love that. That's such a great, like, the completion rate. That's actually what YouTube's algorithm too is based off of. It's not the number of views, which they make that obvious. It's how much of the video have people watch, and that's how you get monetized on YouTube. So those are really great, like, tactical pieces of information. Even just checking back into with source and saying, hey, am I really aligned to do this? Like, there is going to be some potential imposter syndrome. You're doing something new. But if you're committed to saying, I don't know if I'm going to finish this, I guess it's okay to be like, maybe this isn't your jam, and go be on other people's podcasts. So with what you've done with your podcast, you've obviously clearly built. I mean, I think I could just talk to you about podcasts, by the way, for the rest of this time and just ask you all the detailed questions of, how do people make decisions? But I actually want to move on to what you're known for, which is you've got this world-class PR agency. You're brilliant at teaching people how to build up their authority. On top of that, you are a spokesperson for empowering women. And one of my favorite things that you say is to get women off of the sidelines and into the headlines. Like, what? It's like the most brilliant branding, by the way, on the planet. Like, I'm like tagline jelly. Like, that's so
sidelines to
good.
Headlines. Yeah.
So with your rise in your own stardom, with your 1% podcast and what you have going on, speaking engagements, we're here for our friend Stephanie Wigner, Scale Up events, we're sharing a stage together. Yeah. It's amazing. So how have you kind of built your authority through using your podcast, your own authority, and how is that looking like? And then maybe, a couple tips for the audience of, like, what can they do potentially if they wanted to mirror and model your come up? Yeah,
narrow focus. It comes back to the same thing. And the example I always use is Marie Forleo, Amy Porterfield. They've been doing the same thing consistently for years. And people know what they do because of that. They're not just doing like this and then they're starting a gene company and then they're doing investment properties and maybe they do that in the background, who knows? But that's the thing, is
narrow focus.
Yes, it's that consistency in the one area. So there's a thing that we use internally called the authority arc. The authority arc has 3 components. The first part is being rare. So there's 3 R's to the arc. Rare is how are you different? Sure, you might be a branding specialist or a chiropractor, but there's something you do, a belief you have, a method you've done that is different than anybody else.
Absolutely.
That's what you double down on. The next is reputation. How are you building reputation around your brand, around the service or products that you deliver? And reputation is built on trust. It's built on credibility. It's built on the standards that you've created within the industry for yourself and your team. My friend AJ says people don't buy from you. They actually buy from the standards you've created. Think about McDonald's.
Yeah.
You go to McDonald's anywhere in the world, you expect almost the exact same experience.
Yep.
They've created the standards in excellence and that repetition. Starbucks the same way.
Yeah.
And then the next part on that arc is the reach. So this is where you're just amplifying the reach. You're really honing in on how you're rare. You're building that great reputation over and over again, and then you're amplifying that reach.
Wow.
And you think about the snowball effect. You know when you start packing a snowball, it's like this weird, awkward shape when you're packing it, and it's like there's not much movement.
Yeah.
Till you start rolling it, then you have to pack it and turn on the side and roll it again.
Yep.
But there's a moment when it actually becomes a full-blown snowball. Now, if you're at the top of a hill and you roll it down the hill, it gets bigger really, really fast. But the beginning part of it's really tough. People become known, they become iconic, they become somebody who is great within their field because they're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And this is why most people fail, because they get into an industry they don't love and they get bored of it. It becomes mundane, it becomes exhausting, and they just throw in the towel.
Yeah.
So find the thing you love to do, go deep on that, find the niche, and then just keep saying the same thing in a different way. I talk about the authority arc over and over and over again.
And you're so passionate about it.
I love it.
Feel
It's so simple.
I can literally feel it here.
Simple, yeah. Exactly.
It's brilliant. Rare, reputation, and reach. 3 R's of the authority arc.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It makes so much sense. And I love the fact that that specific framework, you're taking something that is intangible in nature and helping people see that there are 3 clear pillars in this. And I think that a lot of times, we have so many similarities when you talk about PR and I talk about branding. There's a lot of overlap there. What would you say is the difference between PR and brand? Like, how would you delineate those and where are the similarities?
I think that branding comes before PR. Doesn't always have to.
Yeah.
But if you could, there's different types of branding. There's like personal branding, corporate branding, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But think of like women like us. We've created this brand. The brand isn't just what you see and feel. It's like the standards that you've set. It's really about the authority arc.
Yeah. Yep.
When it comes to PR, it's a lot easier to pitch yourself or somebody to pitch you to the media if you already have a social following. To get that social following, you've created some sort of brand for yourself. Most people don't even know that they have it, but it's there because you're talking about something.
Yeah.
If you're obsessed about like the best cat or dog toys on the planet, that's all you talk about, that's what you're going to be known for.
Right.
And it's easier to pitch the media in the pet space if that's what you're talking about. So the two go hand in hand. My perspective is that PR is the mother of all marketing because it's really about building relationships. Relationship with potential partners, collaborators, with the public, the media, you name it. And then everything else fits underneath it. But the sequence is if you have something of a brand, then it's easier for you to see the finish line too. Yeah. Like we just relaunched the podcast, as in we rebranded the podcast. We just wrapped it up in something new.
I saw that.
It looks great.
It looks amazing.
But I'm excited about it because now I feel like there's this fresh new face.
Yeah.
And it's updated photos, updated branding. And now posting stuff online is a lot easier too because it just follows the brand standards that we've created.
And it's amazing because you've obviously evolved and grown as a person, and to see that you just went through this personal brand like revamp that you did, and it's amazing because I can see you stepping into your own power and into your own star and light. Tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is it that you wanted to see in the rebrand effort that you just
stepping
released?
Into the power, so many different things came into play. First of all, the age of my children. So they're 10 and 11. Heck of a lot more easier to parent kids that age. Dan's like magnificent, I guess, stardom that's really happened in the last year since publishing his book has inspired me.
Yeah.
We work with the same trainer, and his trainer is like Mr. Olympia. So he's like crazy strong guy. He's trained many couples before. He said, but what he sees oftentimes is one of the partners comes in and is more jealous of the other person's achievement, right? They're like, oh,
Yeah.
he got that.
Yeah.
And they're jealous. I see it as an opportunity for growth. So Dan inspires me. So when I see him landing like podcasts of his dreams, getting 6-pack abs, writing a book, I'm like, I want to do that. Biggest cheerleader. So it inspires me to put myself out there too, but also all the work that I've done over the last 2 or 3 years, deep work, knowing that all the problems in my life have nothing to do with what's out there and everything to do with what's inside. Most people that are victims blame everything outside of them.
Yeah.
But you can't have a great marriage. You cannot be a great parent. You can't be a great leader unless you know inside where your roadblocks are.
Yeah.
And as one of my friends says, Stephanie, is turn your edges inwards. So you have these edges that are traumas, triggers, problems. You have to turn those inwards to realize that that's in here. It's not out there.
Yes.
And when you can control the controllable, then you know what you can't control, and you know you can just leave that be because it's not your responsibility right now. Your energy cannot be put there because you can't solve that problem. So in order for you to really be okay with putting yourself out there, to growing your personal brand, pitching the media, is you have to be confident enough that you're going to face criticism because the Karens come out.
Oh,
and
I
they
saw
come
them.
out full force.
I saw them on
the
your post.
Yeah.
Renee's like doing like a little shimmy with like a sexy blazer.
Yeah.
And someone came at her in the comments. I was like, oh, hi.
Oh,
Hi.
She was torn to shreds by all my friends. I was like, I'm just gonna leave this right here.
I was like, I'm sorry. I'm not confused about what happened here.
So that's a perfect example. If you're authentic and you love hard on people and you fill the rooms in the world with the love that you're here to deliver, your people will come to your
champion.
goal.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like a Braveheart scene.
I was just
in the comments.
So I saw that and I left a little comment and no disrespect to this woman.
Yeah.
I get where she's coming from, but then it was like 12 girls come in and I'm like, all right, they're just doing my job for me because those were my friends. That is the best way to show up in the world, is inspiring people, making them feel seen and heard, because I do that for you, I do that for my friends.
Yes.
We do that for each other.
Yeah.
To know that when I have to go to battle or go to war, there's people behind me supporting
100%.
me. That is probably the most important thing you can do when it comes to putting yourself out there, a personal brand.
Yeah.
Is really be intentional with the people you surround yourself with. And these are people that are going to inspire you, motivate you, call you out on your BS, right? You're not eating steak, but you're having sugar. You can't do that for 75.
Don't bring that up, Renee.
Yeah.
I'm still triggered.
But the people that really care about you will call you out on stuff, and they'll also be there to lift you up when you fall down.
100%. And just so you guys know what happened. So Renee's having this sexy moment. She looks amazing. She looks like a baller. And there's a Karen on the internet who's like, when did confidence become being half naked on Instagram?
Yeah.
And I was like, what? What are we talking about here? Because, and of course it was a woman. And I'm like, why is it that sometimes, anyways, we're not going to go down that, the point, we're not going to down that rabbit hole. The point of it was amazing to see your reaction to it and your audience reaction to it. And when we're talking to the audience, it's men and women alike who are afraid of the haters.
So
like,
you know what's
a lot
so
of
interesting about that post is I'm a very conservative type person. And yes, I feel confident in my body. I don't always feel the necessity to show it off. This was like one of the only posts on social that I post, and I'm wearing a blazer and like a cute little bra. Like you see my stomach and legs.
Yes.
And I was talking about confidence. I was terrified posting this for the exact reason of that woman's first comment. And I go, you're the reason why I did not post this.
Yes.
And I'm not ever going to take this down because of people like you.
Yep.
Because, listen, I get it. It's tough. Social media is so fake and inauthentic at times. But when you feel good and confident in yourself, regardless of what you look like,
Yeah.
like you can put yourself out there. And I look in the mirror and there are days I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
Like even today, I'm like, oh, my legs are starting to droop. Like I'm getting older and the skin is sagging.
This is not factual, by the way. I just touched the leg yesterday, just for the record. She's like, get your hand on this leg. I've been doing this like cool leg exercise. I was like, wow, abs to legs. So
I think that was this morning.
I want you to know how relationships have been evolving.
Yeah. So,
but it was this morning. Yeah, it was this morning.
And those people will come out, right? And the best thing to do is just ignore it. You can delete their comments too. Yeah. You have that option, or you can leave them there. I would say just ignore.
Yeah. I like the fact that you left it there, because then those of us who were like Team Renée could braveheart it. But I think it also just exposed and isn't it funny? Manifestation, like you had the fear and you're like, oh man, and then boom, guess what happened?
First comment.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I know this was coming. Okay, so this was supposed to happen. This was all by design.
Yep.
God was like, yeah, okay, get over yourself. And when it was, at first I was triggered and I was sweating and really upset by it.
Yeah, of course.
And then my friends come to bat and it's still there. You can go check it out. One of my Instagram posts. I don't care.
Yeah.
And the more those people show up and they throw their hate at me or their disrespect is the tougher I get. Because
100%.
I know who I am. And I'm a good human being. And I'm authentic and I tell the truth. And I'm really here to inspire, motivate, and show love as much as possible. That's kind of my modus operandi. Is that how they say it?
Yeah.
It's a great word. My MO.
Your MO.
And so I can't let people come and dampen that.
No.
No.
More authority, more problems.
Yeah, and I there's part of me that felt bad for that woman at some point, because you guys were just like, woohoo, champion.
I didn't. Okay, Queen Bee, I could have come with a bat. I didn't.
No, but everyone was very tasteful.
I came with a pillow. I could have come with a bat.
It was a soft
Don't
landing.
let me see her again.
Yeah.
Soft candor is not going to happen.
I don't even remember her name. But I actually sent her a message in DMs, and I was just like, because I felt bad, you know, but at the same time, it's there and it inspires people.
No. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the American in me.
We
still have the sorry Canadian going on here.
I know.
I'm sorry. So like what your intentions, those are felt. And it's amazing to be in, I think to be in proximity with you really says the difference. So you're going to think this is hilarious. So you know my husband, Cethel.
Yeah.
That like you guys just hit it off. It was so cool. It was so amazing. Cool. Yeah. And they just hit it off, and I go to the kitchen counter, and I was like, you are not going to believe who I booked a podcast with. He's like, Dan? I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, cool. He's like, that's awesome. He's like, how do you feel? I was like, I feel amazing. I'm so excited. Next day, I'm like, you are not going to believe who I booked a podcast with. He's like, Renee? And I was like, yes! And he's like, and you're more excited than Dan. I was like, yeah, totally. And he was just laughing. He's like, oh, you totally are. Yeah. And he made this comment. He's like, you like Dan, but you love Renee. I was like, that's so factual. Yeah. That's so factual.
And I love you too.
I love you. I literally love you.
I picked you up this morning. Off your feet. I literally picked you off your feet.
Oh, yeah. I was like, wait, was I down? Oh, yeah. No, she carried me.
I did.
I'd be getting skinny.
Was that this morning?
Looking fine. It feels like a bajillion years ago.
It was like yesterday. Anyway. Yeah. But
so the question is so first of all, that's a true statement. Yeah. So in Cabo, when Dan's like, people are excited about me and they want to meet me because the book and the stuff and blah, blah, blah. And then they meet Renee and they're like, oh. And I was like, that's actually factual. Like, that's what happened to me. Because I had met Dan like a few months before. And then I met you and I was like, oh, this is like totally true. This isn't one of those like guru remarks where they're trying to like throw a bone to their wife. And I wanted to talk to you about your relationship. Obviously, Dan Martell, he's the man of the hour. He's got this huge book. His personal brand is blowing up with the Tony Robbins. And one of the things I love about you as another woman married to, a man who's super successful and is doing his thing, how do you champion him and be a cheerleader of him? And does it ever feel kind of like, ugh, I'm just like arm candy when you go into spaces and places?
No, because when people meet me, they realize he's the arm candy.
Girl with those 18 abs, I mean, he does play the part.
I know.
If you guys have not seen Dan Renee pictures.
Actually, they just posted a new one this morning.
I know that they notify me, the algorithm does. So I just need y'all to know that they are, you need to look them up.
But you and Cethel are the same way. You champion each other. I remember on the boat when you and I were sitting in the back, and I kept looking over, just the way he looked at you. It was so cute. Like, he admires you, he loves you, and you are a ball of energy, and he's just like, lets you be you. And there's no putting you in a box.
No.
That's what I feel like with Dan, is he sees something in me that I have yet to see, even going to bed last night.
Yeah.
And I was excited because I met this woman, Julie Solomon. She is an incredible human, and we had drinks yesterday. And we always do these things called a meadow report at the end of the day. He turns to me, he's like, tell me about your day. And I'm like, bleh. And I was like, yeah, I met Julie and all this stuff. And he's like, you don't realize your greatness yet, do you? You don't realize, like, the thing that you have. And I'm like, you see it? He said, yeah, I don't see it yet. But it's there. I know it's there because other people have said it. So there's that. But Dan champions me as much as I champion him. And also, I think the thing that he probably appreciates and loves the most about me, other than my goofiness, is that I put my foot down. Yeah. And I will not let anybody take advantage of me. And he gets to those moments, doesn't know he's doing it, and I'm like, he's like, ooh, okay. And that allows us to have that dynamic. But also, it's like, I feel safe with him there, so I can fall into my feminine, knowing that things are taken care of. Yeah. And I also know when I need to be in my masculine. Yep. And same with him. Yep. And so we can just hand things off, and most of the time things are smooth. Yeah. But we also have our friction.
Which is great.
Yeah. But we get over that. Exactly.
Thank you.
We argue.
Thank you for admitting that you're not, like, absolutely perfect angels. And that was one of our favorite parts of, like, the Cabo trip, because afterward we're like, cool, like, do we want to talk about this now? And then we, like, kept coming back to, I was like, remember when they said they weren't perfect and they're still doing the work? I was like, we hung on to that. We were like, they're still doing the work. They're still, even on hard days, I'm like, other people are still doing the work.
Chris Smith even said it. We're not intended to conquer mountains. Yeah. Our life is about always climbing up the mountain. And so, because we think about those moments, the moment that I came through the CrossFit competition, the moment that my podcast came in the top 1%, we get there, we celebrate it, but then we say, now what?
What's next?
Because there has to be. There always is a what's next. Yeah. And if you live like a normal human, you got to figure that next part out too. 100%. So even when our relationship gets to a good plateau, we're like, this is awesome, way to go, something happens. So we're like, okay, what's next? And we have parenting coach, spiritual therapist, and couples therapist, family coach. We've gone through it all. Yeah. And we still do. When there's something broken, we say, this is broken, and we fix it. What's that Japanese saying about ikigai or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
The Japanese
Ikigai. No.
Yeah.
No, is that what it is?
Yeah, ikigai.
Okay,
yeah, that's how
the plate
literally
broken,
how you say it. Yeah.
Right? So instead of discarding the broken plate as an example, they'll seal that crack with gold, and now that gold becomes a part of the art. Yeah. And so that's why I'm so golden.
You are so golden.
Full of cracks that have been fixed.
I mean, I just want to point out a little something here. I see the greatness in you. Dan sees the greatness in you. We are at literally the great factory, the greatness factory. We're literally here at the greatness factory. Yeah. And when we started this podcast, I'm a go with the flow kind of person. You know this. I feel it, I'm intuitive, and I don't know exactly where we're going, but I trust myself and my intuition to guide us in what feels right, because I want to get the downloads. The beginning of the episode, I said there is something about your aura that just stands out. That's the greatness is in that equation. It's in that aura. And it's special. It's different.
It is. And you know what? I'm going to take a sip of water. This is the journey in uncovering what that is, because that process for me is what I got to teach the world. Yeah. And I know that. But here's the thing is I haven't lived that experience yet. Even talking with Julie Solomon yesterday, I said, I have a book in me. She's like, what it's about. Yeah. And I told her, I haven't lived it yet to know what it's about. So I'm still living it.
You're living it through.
Yeah, but I know there's a thing.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. But I woke up this year, January 1st, and I said one of my goals this year, other than being more punctual, being sober, and being fit, was to leave a room better than it was when I arrived. If that could be as simple as making somebody's day or maybe throwing out garbage, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Imagine we all did that. Some little capacity. It takes 5 seconds to do it. Actually, 7 seconds to change somebody completely in a day.
Yeah.
Can't we all just be responsible in that manner to leave every room better than it was before we arrived?
Yeah. It's a really great framework, a really amazing concept. And when you were saying a few moments back, what the picture that came to me when you were talking about this, that it's within you. There's a knowingness and there's a certainty that I'm feeling from your energy by being this close to you. And I pictured like a 2,000-pound Italian marble that's there, and the sculptor is going to sculpt out the most amazing sculpture. And it's like, that's within you, and you're willing to do the work, you're willing to be consistent, you're willing to have the discipline. But the thing that amazes me is there's a lot of people in the entrepreneurship space who have that. I've seen it, I'm friends with them, they're in this, they go up the mountain really quick, they have all the accolades, they have all the revenues, but they're missing another thing that you bring. You bring everyone with you. You take everyone along. You're like, while I'm sitting here in my 2,000-pound marble and I'm getting chiseled on, girl,
we're going.
Here's a chisel for you, and go get your person to start to chisel this out of you.
Noah's Ark.
And that is what causes people to be so attracted to be around you, because you're like, I'm doing this, but you can too. I'm building myself to this next level, but I see something in you. And those words create impact and ripple effects and imprints, and it just continues to cascade forward because you're willing to do the work, but you're also willing to create community and be a leader to that community, to say, us too, all of us. Who's down for this? Let's go together. And
even if you're not down for it, we're doing this.
We're doing this.
We're going.
It
reminds me of Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
It's like you build the ark and you invite the people. I've always been that way.
Yeah.
I've always been that way. I actually look for like the weakest link, or like the run to the litter. I said, just because you're smaller doesn't mean you're not any better or more worthy of anybody else, any other dog.
Yeah.
It's like, let's go. Let's do this.
All right. One last question, because we have to wrap it up, because we both have to run to the speaking engagement where you're giving a talk later.
Yeah.
So let me wrap it up with this question, since this is kind of the journey we went on together. Let's fast forward to, let's say, the end of your life. You're 107 years old, Renée Warren, and you're reflecting back on your life. What are a few of the things that you see have happened that make you really proud?
The people in my life, as in that community that I've fostered and created. Proud is also seeing that my children are happily independent, and they have children, and maybe their children have children too. So we have a bigger family. Mm-hmm. And I'm still with Dan. We're old and wrinkly together.
Raisins.
We are raisins. Old raisins together. With our raisin faces and our raisin knees. And our 6-packs lost under some really loose skin.
Remember the sculpture? Like, you get to keep this. Like,
we just pull it tight on the back.
Once they make it once.
That's true. That's it.
And what is the mark you leave on the world with the amazing work that you've done and you've contributed?
I feel like people will just understand more of their purpose.
Yeah.
And really it comes down to, we're really here to receive love and to give love. And you can start every day that way. Everything becomes way more beautiful. We're not really here to have like the biggest houses and the most beautiful cars, although those things are a bonus and they make life easier.
Yeah.
But that's not what it's about. And when you can find the thing you love to do and you happen to be able to make money, that is the home run, because the right money in the right hands inspires and builds community. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we need. So it's really about giving and receiving love.
That's beautiful. Wow. Way to put a bow on it. Guys, this is a woman, literally has a private jet, like living the life. All of the things, like material success is like within your guys' family from both of your different ventures you've taken as entrepreneurs. You have 2 boys, you're running a busy household, and it's like your takeaway is the purpose of life is to give and receive love. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Renée, where can people follow you? Where can they consume your love and learn to give it to others and receive it? Where can they find you?
I give love on Instagram
Okay.
at Renée_Warren. And I give and receive love on my podcast, which is called Into the Wild.
Subscribe.
And then you can check out, and if you're really interested in like PR, I've got great freebies on wewildwomen.com.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me, Renée. I literally love you to the moon.
Thanks for having me.